Web designing, it's no different than art. You need a canvas, HTML, you need paint, CSS, and you need a paintbrush, your hands, and the keyboard.
N2d Dev.
The more dedication you put into the design, the more people will like and probably buy it. We start our journey by making this beautiful, amazing NFT staking and minting application. But first, we need to build that website. We need to build that web front end that people will love, adopt, and support, because we need adoption. In order for us to be successful, we need to present a beautiful, well-cleaned, well-organized, straight to the point, and minimalistic web application. So nowadays, everything looks minimalistic. If you go into deleting platforms, you're going to see that they go minimalistic. And again, why reinvent the wheel? If we already see success in someone or some organization, project, or page, why we need to reinvent the wheel? Let's copycat, right? Let's copycat. Obviously, we will put our own touch. We're not definitely copy and pasting, but we are taking those applications as an example, and we can follow that, right? We already have a guide. We have someone took the effort and was successful based on the approach they took to launch an application. So why we need to reinvent the wheel if there's already a good proven method that could bring you success to your platform? So let's go ahead and do that. I am going to start by launching a completely new React front end. We're going to build a brand new React server. I'm going to go real quick. We'll then start looking at HTML and CSS to build that amazing Web3 NFT staking and minting application. Let's go ahead and make this happen. Okay, so let's begin discussing the layout that we need to understand in order for us to build the web front end. So the first thing that we have to do, we need to understand how do we break the design, right? So how do we build this layout that we want to see? So I need to see, right? I need to understand how do we build this, right? So how do we want the site to look like? And I think it's very important to have an idea. How do you want the site to look like, right? So you need to have some sort of draft, and it will be even a great idea to write it on paper. Like if you want to draw something and you want to visualize it, I think the best way for me, in my case, is to draw it. So if you get a piece of paper and draw everything, okay, I need to build this nav bar right here. I want this to look like this. I want to give this particular style and such, okay? So with that said, you need to know how everything will look like from a visual standpoint. And I think the best way to do it real quick, real simple, is to grab a piece of paper and draw it. Okay, I want this here, I want this there. Hey, I want to have the NFT Mentor in a separate square. I want to have all the buttons to select the NFT quantity in this particular range. You know, I want to have checkbox. Anything that you want to visualize and you want to build, grab a piece of paper and draw it, because that's the best way for you to follow what you are intending to design. I think you need to have some sort of draft, right? So in my case, I want to have a nav bar, right? So I want to have an upper navigational bar and the header. So this is usually called the header of the site. And basically this is the background and those are forms, right? But let's start by labeling each item. So this is the nav bar, right? So I'm gonna select this, I'm gonna increase, and I'm gonna change the color to be, they don't give me too much options, but that's fine. And let me just put that in red. Okay, that's better, cool deal. Okay, so we got the nav bar, right? Inside the nav bar, we got the sections, right? So those are nav bar sections. So we need to break this way, right? And we got the nav bar logo, right? And we got the nav bar button, right? So we know we need to build a nav bar, but inside the nav bar, we need to get the sections and we need to get the logo. And also we need to do some styling, right? Because we need to get a particular color applied to the nav bar, okay? So let's continue. I also have a background. So this is a background here. And this will have a particular property, which is a CSS class map that gets you the background that you want. Okay, so the way that you want the background to look like in the app, you are going to apply a CSS map or a CSS class. And basically you set up the color if you want to do gradient, etc. Then we got a form. We got another form. Right? So we got two forms. Now, what I want you to look and what I want you to see now is that the HTML breakdown of sections, right? So HTML has a way to like break down the sections on the site. The way that it's usually set is with containers, columns, and rows, right? So we got an upper container. In this case, it can be replaced with the header, but it's another container, right? So we got a container up here. So a container, basically, it's everything that is, it's basically a section on the site, right? So we got this as a container. Then we got another container. This is a full-blown container. Because why? How do we know this is part of a single container? And I'm actually sorry because my pulse is not the best to draw with my trackball, but you get the idea. So we got a container here, we got a container right here, right? And inside this container, we got one column, right? And then we got another column. Go ahead and erase. We got one column. So we got one column right here, right? This is a column. This is a column. And this is another column right here. Right? So we got two columns. By the way, it should be like outside. So this is another column. This is another column. However, both columns are part of the same row. That's another thing. We got a row. This is one row. Literally this and this right here is part of the same row. Sorry, let me clean this up. This row right here ends here. So the reason why I want to draw it this way is for you to understand that everything inside the site is broken down in sections, right? So with that, we are looking at something high level broken down like this in HTML. We got, the first thing will be the application, right? So we got the app. Then we got the nav bar, because that's the top, right? I am just drawing it high level for you to understand. Then the nav bar is a container, so we will see a container. Usually the container will be on top because it's part of the container. The nav bar is inside the container, right? Then we got the nav bar, and if we continue, we finished the nav bar, we got another container, right? Because this is the second container. That's why I draw this whole big square right here, because everything inside here is a container, right? What do we have in a container? We got a row. This is the entire row that covers both forms, okay? And inside that row, and by the way, this is the way to do it. There's a reason why there's spaces in HTML. So let's, two spaces. And then I have inside the container, we got 1, 2. So that means that the nav bar is inside this container, but everything is inside the app, right? So the app includes this container, which includes this nav bar. Then we have another container, which we're just going to align with this container, because those are two separate containers, right? So we got the upper container, we got the lower container. And then inside this container, guess what? Two spaces more, now we got a row because it's part of this particular container, right? And then inside the row, we got a column, and we got another column, okay? And this is why, or this is how, let me just put it on in the middle, right? So we got the app. This is the entire app. And usually you should get something like this. It closes down here. But in this case, it's a div. So it's literally a way to divide information inside HTML. So we got div, this is class app, right? But then it closes down here. So it's in closing bracket. So basically what happens is, it's that we get the opening div and the closing div. Inside this div, we have a container, which inside this container, there's an Nav Bar. This is the first thing inside this container. Then we close that container down, right? So everything that opens needs to be closed. And this is very high level. It's not, I'm not saying that this is the full thing, but it should give you an idea, right? And when we got the Nav Bar, but guess what? We also have to close the Nav Bar. Everything opens, everything closes. You got it? So this is how you close. I'm just giving you a very high way, a very, dumbed down version of how to do things. This container opens, then we place inside the Nav Bar, then we close the container. This container opens, we place a row. This is the entire row, right? So this whole thing is a row, but then inside this row, we have a column and we have a column. So we got two columns inside the row, right? We open this column. This is the first column for the Nft Mentor. Then we close that column, right? So we open, we closed. Same thing now. We gotta open column. We gotta close the column, right? And again, this is not the way the column is the attribute in the class, but I just want to give you the high level. It's actually a div. So the div, and then you apply the class, and then the class is a column, right? So this is how you create a column inside this row. So this entire thing right here, what I'm actually showing you is the entire row, but inside that row, we got two columns, right? And then we close the two columns, and finally, guess what? We need to close the row, okay? So now we got open, close, open, close. Let me see if I can place it somewhere that it's not. Okay, there we go. So we got the app, container, Nav Bar, open, close, close. So we got this first container closed, right? And let me break it down right here so you can understand. We got, app, container, open the container, insert the Nav Bar, close the Nav Bar, close the container. We're done with the first one. Open the container, row, column. We open the container, we open the row, because remember, it's part of another container. But then in that container, I want to have a single row. Let's say I want to have 4 forms, then I will have another row, with 2 more columns. That will break down onto a separate row. But in this case, we'll have a single row. So row, then we place open and close the columns. Those are the forms right here. And then we close the row. And then if you wonder what is inside the column, each column, there's going to be a form. Right? Because we open a form, we close the form. Same goes with the other one. You get the idea, right? Okay, so I want to give you this high level because you need to understand how everything's built, right? And let's say I need to build this form, right? Well, guess what? The row, the first column that I have on this row, it's this particular column. So guess what? I need to open that form right here. And I'm going to start working on that form. I'm going to start with the form, and then guess what I'm going to add? I'm going to add a title. So H is usually the heading for the titles. So I'm going to place, and the number is literally the size of the heading. And I'm going to say Nft Mentor, right? And then guess what? Everything that open needs to be closed. A4. This is how you close it. Okay? Same goes. After what? After H4, what do we want to have below it? We want to have the amount of NFTs. We open that, we close that. And you see the idea, right? So this is literally crash course on how to build HTML. You start with the main app, and anything inside this main app, it's literally contained in particular sections. Okay? Got it. So with that said, we are going to start looking at the Nav Bar. So the Nav Bar is the first thing that we are going to do. But this Nav Bar, it's built with Bootstrap. We are using Bootstrap because, again, I'm lazy. I don't want to build this thing from the whole scratch. Why? We need to reinvent the wheel if already it's invented. Let's go into Bootstrap. Let's download a template. It's already built. copy and paste, modify, done. That's how we do things. Like, we don't need to go all the way into the basics. Let me ask you this question. I might get mixed opinions, but I'm gonna ask you this question. When was the last time you used algebra? I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm gonna leave it there, okay? I'm gonna leave it there. That's why we have calculators, right? Okay, awesome. All right, let's go back. Okay, so the first thing that I got to do, I have to create a new React app. So that's what we're gonna do. Let me go ahead and proceed to do that. So I'm gonna go into my shell, and I am going to invoke npx create React app. And the name of the app, let's call this NFT app, okay? Now we are about to deploy a new React app. We're waiting for all the dependencies to be installed. And once we get that, we need to install dependencies. As we await for this to finish, we have to install Bootstrap, and we have to also install the font, okay? So we are going to install Bootstrap first, and then we will install the font. The way we do that is we invoke the Bootstrap React and the Bootstrap main package. How do we find that? We can go onto our good old friend Google, right? And then we'll do Bootstrap. And once you get to Bootstrap, literally copy this, right? This will be the first one. Let's wait for this to finish. Once we're done with this, install SF font, and then we'll install the React Bootstrap library because that's needed. So those are the 3 dependencies that we need. So let's go ahead and start with this one. Let's see if the React server finished. And it did. Awesome. Okay, so let me go ahead. There seems to be an issue. Let's see if that's an issue. If not, we should be good. Okay. Oh, yeah. We have to go onto the working project folder, and this is where that front end will live. And now we install the Bootstrap. Okay, once we're done with this, we install the font, and then we install the React Bootstrap, or we can do it either way, right? So we'll install React Bootstrap, and then once that's done, we'll install SF font. Okay, done. Once we're done with that, we can start working on the app itself, okay? Okay, once we're done with all the installs, it's time to bring that server alive. So we are going to type npm run start, and we'll wait for the full server to complete loading up, and we will start with CSS, okay? Cool, so we got the server up and running. Go ahead and jump onto Visual Studio Code. I got the working folder open. And this is CSS. So CSS in React will be configured under the app.css. This is the base CSS path to get all the details for your web front end. Under app.js, we know that that's where we configure the app. Okay, so what I have to do first, I have to bring the dependencies in order for us to get Bootstrap functional. We need to start importing the libraries. So the first library that I got to import is Bootstrap CSS, because that is the default Bootstrap styling that it needs to render the objects with the style that they are applying to those things. Also, I have to bring up the React component. So import React from React. Okay. And I also have to, by the way, I also have to import the component. So I'm gonna type component. Right, cool, that looks good. I'm going to save this. And now we have to import the font, of course. Cool, so we got the font, we got the Bootstrap, we got the styling for app, and the default logo that will not be used because we're removing that. Okay, cool. Okay, now the first thing that I got to do, this is what by default will look like. Let's change the background. Okay, so we got 2 ways of doing it. The first way is by looking at the first way of styling is manually. So we can create a CSS Gradient Style by going onto CSS Gradient, and this is a generator which is very useful. You can actually see live as you are modifying the values and the colors, and you can go ahead and build a gradient based on what you want to see. on the background, okay? So with that said, all I have to do is I have to generate the colors that I want to see on the background, right? And then I can grab this output or this syntax in CSS and import that onto my React site. You can either bring this in RGB or you can bring linear grading, which I prefer linear grading because then I can play with this, okay? So I'm gonna copy, I'm gonna go back to app, I'm gonna go under app CSS. A couple of ways that we can do this. We can do this by creating a CSS class and adding that as a CSS class, or we can import this globally, okay? When we import it globally, it applies everywhere. It's going to apply regardless of which container you're at. It's the background for the entire React site. So the way that we are going to do it is by creating a CSS class called Nft app, right? And then we are gonna go ahead and paste the information that we got from the site, okay? I'm gonna Control S, and we are going to invoke this in app. How do we invoke this? We need to invoke this particular class under the body, okay? So this is the root app. Then here we got a header. We can import it here by calling the name of the class that I configure in my app CSS, which is Nft app. So under class name, I already have the app-header. And then I can call the background separate. Another way that I could have done it is by just finding this one in app and just pasting the information below. So if we go to app header, I could have replaced this with the information that I got, and that would do the trick as well, okay? But if you want to apply custom settings and you don't want to touch that class object, fine as well, okay? So let me go ahead and take a look and make sure that we save this. And I am going to Control S, and let's go back to the site and see how that looks. And there you go. We got now a static gradient, which looks amazing, looks way better than the default one, okay? So another way is we can use animation. So we can do CSS animation. There's a lot of generating tools online that you can use to generate a moving gradient, which is awesome, okay? So there's a site called gradient-animator.com where you can actually select the colors and it will generate the syntax for you. So in this case, I selected like a green, blue, and purple, and you can see the background is changing dynamically, which is awesome. It's amazing, okay? So let me go ahead and copy this. And instead of us applying it on the app CSS, right? I'm going to show you now how to do it globally by importing this in the index body, okay? So I'm going to show you how to do that. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to delete this. I'm not going to use that. I want to make sure that it's out of here. So now we don't have that. Let me check back and make sure that the site has come back default, okay? Go back, let's go to index CSS, okay? And under the body, so this is literally the global setting for the body. This is how by default it's going to use the fonts and everything. If you want to set a default value for all your items in the app, you do it inside the body, okay? So in my case, what I'm going to do, I am going to paste what I brought up from gradient-animator. We're bringing that into index.css, and I already pasted all that in. Let me go ahead and Control S, and I believe I need to call body here. Oops, lower cap, body. And what I'm gonna do, body, I'm gonna close body right here. Okay, and I'm gonna Control S, and there you go, but it's somehow, there we go. Now we're talking, Awesome. So yeah, you can actually import that into the index, and that will be global for the entire body. As long as the whole application is inside the body, then you'll get that background. And it's right now it's dynamically changing, which is kind of awesome. You see that live on the demonstration. Right now it's moving. Awesome. Let's continue. Now we're going to build a nav bar. Okay, so for that we need to get the nav bar from Bootstrap, and feel free to go to bootstrap.com or getbootstrap.com. Then you go over examples, headers, and any header that you like here. Cool trick that I have. I think it's cheating. Nah, not really. I can actually grab this and I can find the information here, and I literally can copy this and this will work. And you can see nav here. This is the entire nav bar that I'm looking for. I think so. Yeah, there you go. So this entire thing, I can actually import that and use it, copy and paste. So if you press F12, you can find that HTML config. But don't go that route. There's easier ways to do it. You can actually go to examples, download the examples, and what we can do is once you download that example file, extract and go to headers, right? And then open index. So we are going to open this in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to show you how that looks. Okay, that page that you're looking here is literally the file that I opened in Visual Studio Code. So all we have to do is find the fourth nav bar, right? So if we go back, this is going to be the fourth. This is the first one, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. So go here onto index, and you see headers examples. This is the first one, right? And we know that it closes here. So the container opens here, closes here. This is the first one. Then this is the second one. This is the third one. And finally, the fourth one right here. Okay, how do we know it? Background dark. That's the nav bar that we're looking for. And what we do is we copy and paste that. Where do we paste this? We first of all have to remove all this because this is default for React. And also, if you Control S, now the site should not have anything. And you can see right now it's completely empty because there's nothing inside of it. But now I am going to bring the nav bar that I already have customized for our demonstration. So 1 second right here. I am going to copy my nav. I'm going to paste it right here, and you see that it didn't format it correctly. Once I copy and paste, it lost the indentation. So a trick that you can do is you can select everything, right click in Visual Studio and format selection. Everything should line up correctly, okay? Awesome. I had a custom CSS gradient to it. We're gonna remove this and we should be good. So let me go ahead and Control S and let's go back and see how that looks. Looking way better, looking much better, okay? We still have to work on this, but so far you can see that we're properly rendering and all that, okay? And by the way, I also have to get the logo. So let me go ahead and import the logo, and I'm gonna show you how to import JPEGs and use them as logos, etc. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm going to my folder, and under the public folder, this is the actual working app. You will add all your picture files, and that's how I can import those picture files inside the app. So in this case, I need the N2d Logo. How do we know, or how do we configure the N2d Logo in the nav bar? I'm gonna show you real quick. So when you paste the nav bar, you obviously start with nav and then close at the end with nav, and everything, make sure that it's inside the body. And now all the settings here are default from the Bootstrap config that I imported, but obviously I added a couple of things. One of the things that I did add was the font, and the font, it's right here set up, but also I added the nav bar brand, which is basically the starting of the nav bar, and it's pointing to an image file, which is N2d Logo, So what we need to do now, we need to make sure that in the public folder, in your working folder, in the public folder, this file is present, and I set it up with a width of 7%. So let me go ahead and copy this, head to my new working folder, public, and want to make sure that I paste this here, and let's go back and see. There you go. There you go, making progress. Awesome. How do we get this particular image size? You saw it in the config. We got a width of 7%. I do not set a static size because it's not going to let me shrink. If I move or if I change resolutions, it will not shrink. With this, I can actually shrink if I move the site or make it shorter, or like shrink the window. It will adapt, or it will format, or it will change to the size that it needs to. Okay, so we got the nav bar. That looks great. Awesome. So we got that ready to go. The next item that I got to do, by the way, we got a connect button. but the connect button that I have, it's not following the CSS styling, and I wonder why. Because we haven't imported the button from Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and do that, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I am going to import that from Bootstrap. So I'm gonna import button, and I have to import a couple of things actually. I have to import button, right? And I also have to import button group, and I'm gonna show you where is that, okay? From React. And yeah, there's a prop for that, React Bootstrap. And now I can go ahead and call that in the file, right? In the format. But however, I think I did a different setup for this one, which is a CSS styling. So let me go ahead and do that. Yeah, this is not following Bootstrap. This is following Bootstrap, and this is following Bootstrap, but this is custom. I did this custom. How can you do that? I'm gonna show you how to do this. Class that I have for connect button. So let me find that button of connect. Let's see, it's right here. Class name connect button. And let me go ahead and find on my working application that particular CSS attribute. And so I'm gonna import that. So I'm gonna paste it at the end of app CSS. And I'm going to create a new CSS object called connect button. And it's gonna have a black background or like this particular color with, okay, so the hex number in background, just for you to know, the hex number is like 6 digits. But if you add 2 more digits, this is opacity. So this is how I can make it more or less transparent. So you play with this and then you can actually add opacity to the particular background, okay? And then I have a box shadow. I'm gonna show you what that box shadow looks like. You see this color on the back, like it's all washed out. Let me zoom here. You can see it right here. This all shading, it's literally that box shadow, okay? So I'm gonna show you now how can we make this happen. And all I have to do, I have to make sure that connect button, it's attached to the particular object. So let's go to app and make sure that this is attached here. So let me go ahead and save it and see how that goes. Let's go back. There you go. Literally all it's doing, it's calling CSS. When you invoke class map on the app.js for any object, you can actually invoke anything inside the app CSS, and that's how you can style properly. Okay, so now you see this connect wallet button, the same way that I have it up and running. This font, it's not the same font that I have on my application, right? And the reason why is probably the font, it's not applied locally, but with CSS. So let's take a look at that as well. I'm gonna make one for the Navbar font. I'm gonna make another one. The idea is for you to learn how to manipulate using CSS Navbar font. And all we have to do is we have to open and close here. Let me scroll all the way up. And I want you to be an expert CSS. So all I have to do, I got to say font family. And I gotta call SF Pro display. Okay. And now I gotta say font weight. Right? And I'm gonna say 300 because that's a more thinner font. So the less weight, the thinner the font will be. And I am going to Control S, and I'm gonna go to app, and then I will apply this in the global Navbar class map. Navbar font, I think that's the name, right? Navbar font, okay. And we are going to Control S and take a look again. There we go, beautiful. Okay, awesome. So that's how you build that nav bar. Now we got a connect button placeholder. So now connect your wallet can be attached to the JavaScript functions, but obviously we're not gonna do this on this video because it's gonna take forever. Okay, but now you see this picture. Awesome. Next thing that we got to do, we have to build the forms, and we told in the beginning of the video, so this is a whole container right here. If you create 2 containers, then you're basically dividing the screen in 2. So we're just gonna work with 1 container now, and we're gonna build that NFT Mentor and the staking form, both forms, okay? So for that, I gotta do the following. I am going to import both forms, okay? After closing the nav, we are going to start with the second container. So once we get that container placed in, we make sure that we a division, and inside here is we'll apply the forms. One form will be for the Nft Mentor and the other form will be for the staking, okay? And I'm going to place that here. This is the first form, okay? And by the way, when I paste that in, it did not format it properly, which means that I got to do that trick that I show you. Right click, format, and boom, beautiful. Now it looks better, okay? All I have to do, I have to Control S and see if we don't made a mistake. Okay, now we definitely have everything inside here, but one thing that we're seeing is that there's no division because we haven't imported the second form. So what's going to happen by default, it will take the entire space of the site, of the app. Okay, as we start adding more forms, we will definitely get the arrangement that we're looking for. Okay, so with that, all I have to do, I have to build another class in CSS to give the background and to give that appeal. So let me take a look at the picture. So this is how it should look like at the end, okay? So we got the Nav Bar font, we did that, okay? Now we are going to do the Nft Mentor Styler. So Nft Mentor, we are going to open the brackets and paste the information inside. I don't need this bracket, I don't need this bracket. Awesome. So now we got a class that we can use to style the mentor, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to now get this value and invoke this on the form class map, okay? So we're gonna go back to app.js. So we are better off working straight on the app.css. So what I ended up doing again, it's the NFT app, the animated background. I just created that object and then called that under the app. So what you want to do, I'm going to show you right now, and this is now I was able to see that I am getting the gradient from the Nft Mentor CSS class that we configured. Okay, so with that, all we have to do now in order for us to get that app background or the moving background back is we have to apply the CSS attribute here. So it's going to be NFT app. That's the one that has the animated background. So let's go ahead and look at that again. And sure enough, we see a gap here because again, it only applies to the container that is active. Right now, we don't have anything configured below, so that's why the background is not going all the way to the bottom. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, awesome. So now we got the Nft Mentor. Obviously, we need to import the pictures of the tokens, of the ERC20 tokens. So let's go ahead and do that. And we know that we need to go onto the public folder and import those files. And let me import the N2d Logo for the N2d token and the USDT and the Matic one. I'm gonna copy. I'm gonna go onto the other folder and I'm gonna go ahead and paste it right here. And that should be it. And sure enough, obviously it's gonna display that, ginormous. But once we add the other form, you're going to see this shrinking, okay? Let's go ahead and continue. How I was able to build this entire thing, right? And have the borders and all that. We know that the styling and the colors and all that, it's provided with the CSS config that I did. So if we go back onto the app, we go app CSS and we scroll down. Remember, Nft Mentor, this is where those attributes are being obtained, okay? We also have to make sure that we are importing button group. Why? I'm gonna show you right now, okay? So button groups are attributes from Bootstrap that I'm using to style the site. And if you can see here, I'm actually using it to create a button group. So in Bootstrap, you have a button group, and then inside the button group, we got the buttons, and that's how I am building it, okay? So you got, first value, second value, third value, fourth, and fifth. This is gonna be very important on the upcoming videos. I'm going to explain what is that doing because this is referencing JavaScript on the functions calling the smart contract, okay? So we got that. those attributes, if we end up in the nav, okay, the nav bar ends here, and this is where we start with the container for the mentor. And we can see here, body Nft Mentor. This is how we call that style for that particular body. And this is basically closing here. If I create another form, the body, you know, the colors and all that will inherit from that other form, okay? So with that said, let's do that. Let's import the other form, and then we can talk about both forms, okay? Everything opens and closes, okay? So we got the beginning of Nft Mentor, and we start with the header size 1, which is the biggest header size in CSS, right? So we open a div. Obviously, we make a row, we open a div, and then the first div will include the mentor title, the amount of NFTs minted, the wallet address, and such, okay? So let's go back. And all this information literally is that. This is literally the row right here, right? And then all the objects inside that row. Then we can close this with a div and then open another div and add the button groups with the buttons and all that. And finally, we have another set of buttons for the actual tokens. Obviously, this is huge because it hasn't shrinked. The idea for this is to adjust, because if I want to move the site and different, you know, I want to resize the page, I can actually, you can see here, I'm actually resizing it, and it will adapt. And that's what we want. We want to get dynamically adjusting resolution, right? And this is how you accomplish that. Also, if you can see here, this is not adapting because I bet we have a static size setting, and we have to make sure that this is changing to dynamic. This button allows this to be a mobile app. So we have to work with mobile styling. That will be a completely separate video. I am going to dedicate on the desktop app for now, but then we'll do that, okay? So we got the mentor. Now let me add the form for the staking vault, okay? Import the second form, which after we close that first one, we will add a second one. And make sure that it formats, right? So we want to format the selection. So I'm gonna break it down real quick here so you can see. So let me go ahead and see how that looks. Control S. And sure enough, we got those functions not being defined because, again, we haven't configured the JavaScript functions yet. So let me go ahead and delete any dependencies for that, so we're not getting errors. So let's see, this is good. Okay, on click, if you see here on click, this is not needed. I want to make sure that there's another one here. Again, anything that calls a JavaScript function, that it's not available right now. So if we leave it there, the render of React will trigger an error and it's not gonna finish rendering. I think those were the only ones. Someone calls and claim it. We're missing one more, which is claim it. Let's take a look and see where that one is. It should be all the way to the end because that's the end, right? If we look here, claim rewards is claim. It's right here. Claim rewards, and this is the title, okay? And this should be the button, and there we go. This is claim it. Let's remove it. And don't worry because we have to configure that, right? But I'm going step by step so you can see how everything is set up. Right? And now we properly got the NFT staking vault, but it's showing below, not next to this one. So we have to fix that, okay? And the reason why it's not being properly formatted is because I haven't imported the CSS maps, okay? So let me go ahead and import the CSS maps so we can go ahead and continue. I can call this staking rewards. Let's make one new, called staking reward. Staking rewards. And then I'm gonna, here, I'm going to paste the attributes, right? Awesome. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back to app, and then we're going to call this staking rewards instead of creating one. Save it and see how that looks. We're getting there. We're definitely getting there. We probably have the container not with specific sizes, so that's why we're getting this thrown out. Okay, and there is a container styling that I did, which it's going to give you that particular format, right? So right now it's not formatted correctly because it's lacking that, okay? And we are getting there. We definitely got now the right styling, for, at least for this one. but I am not getting the same one for this. If you see my vault activity, it's not showing the same gradient. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a look at the staking reward and make sure that I'm using the same gradient, okay? So where is that? Let's see where that is, okay? Staking rewards. Okay, so we got staking rewards, and let's see how that looks. Awesome, finally, cool. All right, so looking way, way better. Now, finally, how do we get this to be placed next to the mentor and not below? Okay, I am going to show you how right now. There is a container styling and CSS that we also have to do, which is called, I call that the container style. I'm gonna bring that in, and I'm gonna show you how that looks, okay? So what it's going to do is going to align stuff using grid. If you don't know what grid is, basically the grid is a dynamic way of arranging the objects in HTML dynamically, but you still have to place row, call, object, etc. Okay, front-end development is another animal. Okay, there's a lot. I am, to be honest, it's not, front-end is not my thing. I can defend on it, but front-end is definitely a world on its own, okay? So we got container style. I'm gonna save this, right? And then I'm gonna go back onto app, and we are going to place it right here. No, actually, let me find where the container is. Okay, there we go, right here. Awesome. And we're gonna call container style. Okay, so we got container style now, and sure enough, now we're definitely looking way better. Okay, there's things that we still have to do, and the reason why we're not getting this particular object looking like this and this looking like this. First of all, I gotta add the picture, so I gotta add that art. But also in this particular case, I do have objects below here, which is the NFTs, the NFT collection itself. The moment I add that NFT collection below here, this will be pushed up, and then the items will self-align because we're using grid. Okay, this is not going to happen in this video because I have to work on the functions before we can bring up the NFT collection, because the NFT collection will be generated dynamically calling OpenSea or calling Morales, calling all the API calls, so then it gets the picture and all that. But let me add the picture right here and see how that looks, okay? So this is the, let's find in the code where that is. Let's take a look at that. Okay, art, here we go. So we got an image right after form, right? We got an image, and then we start the second form. If you see here, we got a form, the image, and we got a second form. So let me go ahead and add the picture, which we haven't imported, right? That's why we're not seeing it. And then the picture file name is art.png. I'm gonna grab, right-click art, copy. I'm gonna go to the new folder, and let's look back. There you go. So now we do have art, but like it's the art, the NFT image, it's already been displayed. However, we're not going to get the full arrange objects because this is a grid display, right? Which means that when I place something below here, then it's going to shrink and then everything will align to place. Right now it's not going to because there's nothing below it, so it's just gonna by default use the entire page, okay? You can manually set it up, but you don't wanna go that route because you want the site to be responsive. You want the site to self-adjust based on the resolution and all that. And if you add static width or heights or pixels or resolution, then no matter how many times you rearrange things, it's not going to self-adjust. So you have to make sure that you use dynamic like flex grid or flex display or grid. And right now we're using grid, which it's going to self-adjust. But the moment we get this displayed, it's when we get the NFT information below. And that way it's going to push this entire form up and then everything will be arranged that way, okay? So we got it that As a matter of fact, you can leave this running with, changing colors on the back. We set it up, or you can put it statically, and that's up to you. The last thing I want to show you is how to do this glow, right? So we got a dynamic CSS attribute right here. This will start blinking or like flashing and slowly in gold, okay? So I am going to bring the CSS config, and I'm going to explain it real quick. It's very simple. I generated this online. Like literally you can go online and look for CSS generators or animation generators, and you can figure this one out, okay? You just have to call it, and that's it. So let me find N2d gold collection, and let's see what the attribute for that is. So let's see, N2d gold collection, bronze, silver, and gold. And we are getting an attribute called gradient 4. So let's call this staking gold effect, or gold effect, stake gold effect, right? And we're gonna open it, close it, and paste the information inside. I'm gonna tell you what it is. Okay, there we go. So we got the font family of SF Pro display. The font weight is 300. Then we got that animation that I was talking to you about. You get the glow effect by calling animation glow 2, 3 seconds infinite. So it continues and continues and continues. Now we need to call this on the React site. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Save it. I'm gonna make sure that I save it here. And let's take a look. And the reason why it's not animating is because we need to do the animate CSS import as well, which is glow 2, I believe. So let me take a look at that. Yeah, glow 2. So let me find this object, which is needed for this to render, okay? So I have it right here, and this will be imported as a keyframe. So I'm gonna add this on top. Keyframe is called glow 2. I'm gonna Control S and see how that looks. There we go, and you can see now the animation is up and running. So if I expand or shrink, you can see the form readjusting, okay? Which is kind of cool. And now we can see that effect right below here, okay? That's awesome, okay? I'm going to wrap it up because there's a lot to do, but you can see now we got from 0 all the way to the forms almost ready to go. Once we get that NFT collection displaying, this will move up, and then this should arrange left and right, and the picture should look just like this, okay? So everything is dynamic, everything should readjust based on the settings, okay? So let's take a look at one more time and make sure that we got everything set. And yeah, once we are done with this, we should be good to continue with the JavaScript configuration, which I'm telling you, it's a lot. It's a lot, okay? But so far so good. This is our first video, and I just wanted to show you how to do a simple, not a simple, by the way, not a simple, how to do a more elaborate HTML display and use CSS for styling, okay? Alrighty, so let's wrap it up right here, and we'll continue on. Okay, so I have to admit, web front-end designing, it's never been my strong skill. I've been learning on the fly, I've been learning as I go, but it's becoming extremely relevant in Web3 because you can have the best blockchain technology out there, the best blockchain solution, but if you don't have a way to properly present that to potential investors or users, it won't matter. It won't matter. Like, you need to make that visually appealing so people can actually adopt and can start using it, and they will feel happy to navigate on that app because it's well structured. You got everything easily accessible. You don't have to go too deep into a website to find what you're looking for or to trigger any action or any specific function, because everything is clear for you to understand, okay? So that is the goal. We are going to build a very minimalistic Web3 front end to do NFT staking and to do minting, but we still want to have full functionality. And that's what we're here for, okay? I hope this video was very informative to you and you learn a lot from it, because we are climbing those steps. And as we progress on to the final stage of this application, you are gonna be very familiar with how to connect and how to interact with Web3 from a front-end perspective, okay? Alrighty, so I hope you like this video. If you do, you know what to do. Give it a thumbs up. We need those thumbs up. Also, if you haven't subscribed, welcome to the channel. Subscribe. You're not going to regret it. I'm telling you, you're not. And obviously, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.